Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. October 15th, 2025 is coming up. That is the date on which the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit is going to hear argument as to whether or not New Jersey's ban on AR-15 semi-automatic rifles and magazines that hold more than 10 rounds, whether or not that's constitutional under our Second Amendment. And between now and then, there's something extremely important that we should be cheering for to occur. And the thing we should be cheering for is that the United States Senate confirms to the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit former Clarence Thomas clerk Jennifer Mascott. A big deal. We'll talk about why it is when we come right back. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Boxes Diner, proud American gun owner, constitutional attorney, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and I'm proud to say the top voice of the Second Amendment in America. Thank you, 2025 Gundies Awards. All right, folks, so this is a big deal, and we can help make a difference, I believe. That is, we need to get the United States Senate Majority Leader John Thune, and the whole gang over there to step up and vote to confirm pronto the pending nomination of Jennifer Mascott, Professor Jennifer Mascott, the former Clarence Thomas clerk, a former clerk to Brett Kavanaugh. We need to get her confirmed to the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit immediately. Specifically, we need to get her confirmed to the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit before October 15th, 2025. And the question is why? Because you know what's going to happen on that date. On October 15th of this year, the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, covering the states of Delaware, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey, are going to hear en banc, which means the entire court will be hearing argument as to whether or not the New Jersey ban on AR-15 semi-automatic rifles and magazines that hold more than 10 rounds or so, whether or not those bans are constitutional under the Second Amendment. And they clearly are not, by the way. You just have to apply Heller. But I digress. Just a couple weeks ago, the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit decided, of course, that they were going to hear en banc the case of Cheeseman versus New Jersey and the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs, also against New Jersey, the Attorney General over there. That means it's a big deal, folks. And as we've talked about before on this channel, this is a particularly unique situation that's potentially very favorable to the Second Amendment. And why do I say that? Because as you know, in all the blue jurisdictions, the blue state jurisdictions, the Californias of the world, the New Yorks of the world, the Illinois of the world, they have a tremendous advantage when it comes to anti-gun stuff. Because these terrible gun states, Hawaii, Massachusetts, California, New York, right? They pass these terrible anti-gun laws that clearly violate the Second Amendment, but then then there's a lawsuit brought and those cases get heard by courts of appeals out of Boston, Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, right? And guess what? They do exactly what you know they're going to do. They're going to do what blue state judges picked by blue state politicians are going to do on the gun issue. They're going to rule against the guns and against the Second Amendment, period, full stop, almost every time. But there's an exception to that, folks. And that is the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. Why? Because in that particular jurisdiction right now, the breakdown of the political appointees on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit is 8-6 for the Republicans. That's right. They're Republican appointees on the Third Circuit in favor of the Republicans, 8-6. And that Third Circuit oversees an anti-gun jurisdiction in the form of New Jersey, which has every crazy anti-gun law you can think of. So it's an unusual and favorable dynamic when it comes to our right to keep and bear arms, because it is the only dynamic in the country where you have a arguably favorable jurisdiction at the Court of Appeals level that actually respects the Second Amendment as written and as understood by the Founding Fathers in 1791 when it was adopted. Yet overseeing a terrible, crazy anti-gun state. Because all the other courts that might be favorable to the Second Amendment, like the Fifth Circuit out of Texas and Louisiana, guess what? They're never going to have to deal with an AR-15 ban because the states they oversee, the Mississippis, the Louisianas, the Texas of the world, right? They're not going to pass the stupid laws for the Fifth Circuit to have a chance to knock them down. But that's not the case with the Third Circuit, which is why it is so important right now in the next several weeks that the United States Senate get confirmed to that open seat in Delaware for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Circuit, that they confirm pending nominee Professor Jennifer Mascott, a former Clarence Thomas clerk, a former Brett Kavanaugh clerk when he was on the D.C. Circuit. She's a professor at Catholic Law School. She's also was a former professor, I think, at George Mason at the Antonin Scalia School of Law. She's a well-known originalist scholar on things like separation of powers in the administrative state, also known as the deep state, and its encroachment on American life and its creation as a fourth branch of government, which is not allowed under the Constitution. She's known for all that, has impeccable credentials, and has been nominated by none other than Donald J. Trump. So this, with all that said, if she's confirmed, it will give the Republicans in the Second Amendment movement, arguably, now we don't know how she's going to rule. We can never predict the future. As I've said before, the history of the future is yet to be written. So we don't know how she's going to rule. But she is a known originalist, which is good because originalists like to apply the law as to what the Constitution meant and was understood to mean when it was adopted in 1791, as opposed to like some living Constitution, evolving standards, make it up as we go along, Ruth Bader Ginsburg style, do what's best for the progressive movement because that's what we're here for. No, none of that nonsense will apply, I suspect, nor will Jennifer Mascott, I believe, embrace that kind of hooey as an originalist. That's my guess. That's probably why Donald Trump nominated her, I would think. But with that said, if she's not confirmed by October 15th, that gives the Republicans a very narrow majority on the U.S. Court of Appeals for that en banc argument. It will be split 8-6, which means, hypothetically speaking, if only a single Republican judge on the Third Circuit defects, if you will, and rules that New Jersey's gun ban is constitutional, which would be an absurd ruling, but let's assume they did. All it takes is one Republican nominee on that Third Circuit to vote with the Democratic appointees. And then you have a 7-7 vote. It's a tie. And if it's a tie en banc 7-7, it means the lower court ruling, which in this case was basically a ruling that upheld the entire New Jersey law with the exception of one narrow AR-15 model gun. I think it was a Colt AR-15 was the only gun that the district court said you couldn't ban. Everything else was okie dokie according to the district court, as I recall. Now, if you have Jennifer Mascott on that court, it then becomes 9-6. So if you do have a Republican defector, let's say, for the sake of argument, that becomes 8-7, and you still have a win for the Second Amendment. So as you can see, it's extremely important, in my opinion, that the U.S. Senate confirm Jennifer Mascott before October 15th so that she can be sworn in and she can participate on that en banc panel of the Third Circuit overseeing that case of Cheeseman and that case of the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Association, the consolidated cases dealing with the AR-15 ban, semi-automatic rifle ban, and the magazine ban there in New Jersey. All right, folks, so here's the story now. Just now that I've laid out the issue, I've laid out what I would like to see happen. The reality is I don't have any formal sway over the U.S. Senate, and I'm not sure who does. But the reality is someone out there might have some sway over the U.S. Senate. Somebody out there might be able to talk to John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader. Maybe they can talk to Chuck Grassley, the head of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And again, I don't know where the whole process is. And frankly, I don't care. In the sense that the United States Senate is controlled by the GOP. And I know what some of you are going to say. You get angry at the Republican Party, and I understand. No one is perfect, though. No party is perfect. And it's very difficult to be perfect in Washington, D.C., with a large number of snakes all around, and the Democrats trying to throw sand in the gears at every turn. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats do this all the time. And it's not easy to overcome all that. It takes time because of various procedural rules and hurdles and other nonsense that goes on in the U.S. Senate, which is specifically designed, in fairness, to slow things down, to make things go slow, which generally speaking is a good thing when it comes to passing more legislation, let's say. We don't need more laws. But with that said, when it comes to the confirmation of a clearly qualified Court of Appeals judge in the form of Professor Jennifer Mascott, it seems to me this should be a relatively straightforward process, but of course nothing is straightforward in the United States Senate, given how they're always fighting with each other. So anyway, we'll see what happens. And just as a side note, I actually discussed this exact issue in an article, which you may have seen on X, in that excellent publication, The National Pulse. I'll put a link to the article down below where it kind of lays out in greater detail the articulations and the different views that I set forth in this video. But if you want to sort of see it in writing, in article format, check out the link to the National Pulse article that I published, which again, I'll put in the description of this video. So there you have it, folks. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure you follow me over there on X at 4Boxes Diner. Don't forget to subscribe both to YouTube and to Rumble. Like this video, and I look forward to talking to all of you in real soon here at the 4Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.